but it's close enough. Hello, everybody. The last, maybe for a long time, Tuesday live before lock golf show from Awesemo.com. Myself, Ben Raza, here with the man himself, Jason Roslin. Last one of the Asian swing. We've made it to China for the WGC, and then we'll be back to the stateside soon enough. But how you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I'm done, I guess, with the Asian swing, and we got to go through one more. Last week was such a tilt. It took everything out of me. I'm going to sit up a little bit. Sorry. It even took my posture out of me.
I hear that.
We go into the weekend. I knew I had a shot at something. And then they blow play for the entire day, come back, they play 27 holes. I'm like, just finish. Just get it done. They couldn't. They had to come back. So it was just an extra long tilt for me. It ended up being okay, which we'll get into in a minute. But, yeah, other than that, I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain.
Good. Yeah, I truly didn't know what day of the tournament they were on at points. I actually didn't. It was just anarchy. They were shortening holes. It was tough. It's tough to sweat it at night with no shot tracker. We talked about that. But
yeah, what do you make of the 10th hole? One of the, I wouldn't say toughest courses, but toughest holes in the course, maybe like 8th or 7th. They just move it to 140-yard par 4. Completely screws the DraftKings and FanDuel scoring. I mean, totally screwed. What do you mean? Obviously, from a tournament perspective, I ran a couple of tournaments, in my day as an assistant professional. So from a tournament operational standpoint, I totally agree with what they did to shorten the hole. But why make it a par 4? I mean, it just totally screwed with my head.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, honestly, it affects DraftKings more than anything else in terms of the par. I don't know why they wouldn't just make it a par 3, but it added to the craziness of the Zoizo. So we do put that behind us, and we got what I think is clearly the staple of the Asian swing, the WGC HSBC from China, which we have each and every year. And I do want to say, before we dive in, our friends at Fantasy Draft sponsoring the show, they're doing same routine, great stuff over their rake-free daily fantasy. They're posting monster tournaments in NFL. They have the other sports as well. But the big thing is 100% of the entry fees goes to that prize pool. So if you haven't signed up and you want to, promo code Awesemo, get a 7-day free trial, get over there, play softer competition. And like I said, when you're not paying rake, it really does help. So
sure does. And they also have flatter contest. Alex,
I saw
Awesemo DFS, he just tweeted out maybe not too long ago. Yeah, he took the win down on one of them, the one that he was showcasing. But it was just showing that 9th place got within 1/6 of what first place got, which is a lot flatter than 50,000 to first to 1,000 to 10th or whatever.
Lucky. Yeah, you win a ticket if you beat 900,000 people, but that's neither here nor there. I like, of all these events, I'm not a big fan of non-cuts and stuff, but this is a good one. We have a good field. We have some real shady characters at the bottom, which we will get to as always. But what do you just kind of make of this event on the surface?
Yeah, I think I'll loop all 3 of these kind of events in together that we've just had. And the 78 players, more than what we normally see for WGCs, and it being a non-cut, it definitely messed with me. However, we're getting smaller prize pools, which means you don't have to be necessarily perfect. But to win the $9 on FanDuel last week, which I did, I had 5 guys in the top 5 and then Victor Hovland thrown in. I had Corey Connors, Billy Horschel, who you and I actually talked about at length on the show last week. We both brought them both up. We'll go into a little bit of the stats that kind of led us to them last week. I'll bring up some of the stats from last week. And then I played Tiger and Xander, of course. And then Victor Hovland, though, was the throw-in. He only scored 60 points. If there was bigger prize pools, I likely would have lost that contest. So take it with what it is and know that you don't necessarily have to be perfect, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, we do see that. And, that's what comes down to context selection. We see that in NFL. We see that in golf, where know what you're playing in. And it's not, it's not where you're like, okay, I can make, if you knew it was a quote unquote mistake, you wouldn't do it, but you just have some more wiggle room. And it's not, you're playing in the best ball. You can't have any slip. You just can't. Even if you don't, you still might not win. It's just that top heavy and that difficult. But it is nice to have some of those tournaments. That is one of the positives for this time of the year. You can get by with, not a perfect 6 of 6, in terms of top end finishes.
Yeah, and on that best ball, I just want to bring up that the best ball is the one on DraftKings this week. It's 50K to first with 175 guaranteed. I mean, obviously, so top heavy. If you are MMEing it, you got to come in the top 6 to break even. At one point last week, I was in 12th and I was losing $300 for the event. It just goes to show you what prize pools do in this type of year, and understand that if you're playing in the best ball, you really are going for broke. You really are playing to win the game, as you and I talk about a lot. And just understanding that, and if you're okay with the possibility of a 25% or 20% return on investment, okay, then certainly stomach it. But if you're looking to grind it out and see if your edge is beatable, that's not really the contest for it at the beginning of if someone's trying to build a bankroll, right? Now, again, if bankroll is no question, obviously we play for the biggest prize pools. But just understand that if you come in 12th out of 25,000 people, you could very well still likely lose money in that contest overall if you're MMEing. And that's just wanted to bring that up. I just found that in no cuts, it's even worse because everybody's got a chance. Kevin Tway could make a hole-in-one after making no birdies all week and end up giving value. So that was just kind of my note on that.
No, just to add to it, and then we'll dive into these golfers. I think it's important to take there's a lot of people, you play golf, and if say you're new and you haven't played a ton, I think you gotta kind of treat this as like the milli maker, in the sense, if you're breaking even in a week on the best ball, that's a win. That's a big win. I know it's not glamorous. You take a small loss, that's a win, because you are literally looking to have a chance in that tournament once, and you hope that it connects. And if you do, you could pay for it for a very long time. It's just not a tournament where you're going to steadily build a bankroll. It doesn't work like that. So if you have the runway, more power to you. Take the shots, because somebody has to win it. And I mean, you've had some big hits in there. I've done okay here and there, and we've had some great people in chat take it down over the year. So just keep that in mind, though, contest selection. So let's dive into it. What do you say?
Yeah, I think switching from a course, basically 2 courses where you have no data whatsoever, to a course where we've seen for quite a while now, Shishan International Country Club. It's a nice course, tons of trees on it as well. We'll play, in terms of layout of the course, we'll play similar to the last 2 weeks as a course that you need to be relatively tactical on. However, this course, most specifically, if you miss the fairway here, it's very, very penal. The weather always plays into consideration a bit. Shishan has gone from the first year it became a WGC in 2014. It was like 18th hardest, so not bad. Then it jumped up to 43rd out of 50th easiest, so it was like the 7th easiest. And then from there, it's been on a trend down, harder, harder, and harder, all the way to 3rd hardest on the rotation last year. Obviously, some weather in play. But what do you make of that? I mean, it certainly going from one of the easiest to one of the hardest, something had to change in the golf course.
Definitely. And it's a course that, like you said, we have a lot of data on, in the sense of we've seen it at least. And, the thing that strikes me, no matter what the conditions, you have to gain off the tee. You don't need to do it with distance. You can be very tactical, but you can't be messing around and spraying it. We've seen guys like Molinari win and Knox, and then we've seen, the big boys hit it. And find a way to take down this tournament with guys, Xander, Decky, people like that. Rose, another one. But I don't know what to make in terms of the major jump you talked about with difficulty. Some of that I think is noise, but at the same time, it clearly shows that the course has some teeth, regardless of how the weather really plays.
Yeah, when this course was built, way back when, and I think the first winner was like David Howell was the name, and it was a European Tour event before it became a WGC event. And right after that, the architect said, I'm not going to have my winning score be -20 every year, and he added some length, added some bunkers, and obviously anytime you do that, it's going to make it harder. So driving accuracy, we both talked about, we think it's going to be really important. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean throw out Chaz Reavie and he's going to top 15 here. That's not necessarily what that means. Rory McIlroy could hit 65 or 70% of his fairways in a week, and obviously we'd much rather have Rory McIlroy in the fairway than Chaz Reavie, because it's likely 100 yards further up the fairway. However, wanted to mention just the 5 guys that are playing in this week's field that hit 60% or more of their fairways that I thought would be interesting. Rory was one of them. Xander Schauffele, another one. So 2 right off the top. Thought I'd bring it up now since we're about to talk to him. Interesting that they throw Hideki in the middle. Are you nervous about a little bit of come down from Hideki, a little bit of come down from Earth? Most emotion we've seen out of him ever last week. Granted, it was his first home event playing in Japan. But I just feel like he got on such a high, and to lose to Tiger, I would rather go to Xander Schauffele this week over Hideki.
It's just a tough spot for him in a lot of areas. That being one of them. He's priced up as, I'm not saying that he shouldn't be, but he still is. You're paying a premium for him. You're paying the recent form, and he does have a win here. He also has, he's won here. Everything else has been god awful here. So take that for what it's worth. You can kind of justify that both ways, but it's just a tough ask. So I understand when you're talking elite talents like him, he's always in consideration. But for me, I would rather pay up for Rory or pay down to any of the other guys, to be honest. And that's no real disrespect to Decky. It's just kind of the situation at hand.
Yep, I totally agree. And, like I said, Xander hitting the amount of fairways that he did, he should have been better than 10th place, too. I mean, he bogeyed the last hole, the 18th hole. So it was really probably closer to a top 5. Or that 6th place finish that Connors and Horschel finished in. Xander probably, I think if he pars that or birdies, it would have tied them there. So the finish should have been a little better. I do like both of them this week. However, I've got Rory, and let's talk about him for a second. 11,700. It's not scaring me, and I got a feeling it's not going to scare many people at all. I've got him coming in close to 30% this week.
That's the one thing that's a little dicey. So he doesn't have JT next to him this week. Like Decky, I'm not saying he doesn't belong there, but it's just different.
Yeah,
it's not DJ, it's not Brooks, it's not JT. Rory is going to be a lightning rod up top. And I think that your first question is yay or nay on Rory on your lineup. Certainly, I'm going to have plenty of him.
Yep.
But that's really where you start, because I agree with you 100%. He's going to be really popular.
Yeah, and when I first did the ownerships and I saw that Matsuyama was obviously 11-1 when the salaries came out, I'm like, okay, no one's going to be scared off of Rory in any contest. Whereas in sometimes, like last week, for example, Tiger Woods was about 9% owned throughout most contests. However, you go into the single entry and Tiger was like 4% owned. However, on the flip side of that, Tony Finau was about 20% owned, but because he was chalk, ended up being like 35 or 40% owned in those single entries. I got a feeling Rory McIlroy, like in that $200 single entry, he could be 50 or 60% owned. So if you play multiple contests, that's where I'd say maybe you want to look to fade Rory in those single entries where we know most people are going to be putting him in his lineup.
So we could do a whole show just on what you just said.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is what happens when you get into a single entry. People are like, well, I only have one bullet. I have to go
got to go Rory.
That's the time to change it up, because you get more leverage on the chalk and you get a bigger depression on your ownership on your pivots, because no one in their right mind is like, I have one bullet, I'm going to play Usti. Only person who does that is talking right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
They end up looking like this. That's the side effect. But I'm telling you, people, it's groupthink. And you're 100% right. The chalk is way more chalky in single entry than it is in MME, because in MME, you have, let me mix it up. It's a portfolio style. So keep that in mind. It doesn't mean go crazy, but I think that is something that's underutilized across the industry.
Yeah, and definitely, I'm not going to lie, I definitely try and use it to my advantage. This week, I'm going to do the same thing. Granted, like you, the same, we do play in multiple contests, so it's easier for us to do that.
Definitely.
However, if somebody was playing, let's just say they had 2 lineups. They were playing the $200 and they were going to play the $8, same lineup. Would you tell them that playing Rory would still be okay, even though he could be 60% owned in that 200? Like, can we still make a lineup that could still have leverage on the field?
Certainly. But what you want to weigh is his ownership against, the expectation. If you're getting if it was something extreme and you're getting 1/10 of the ownership on Decky, to me, long-term, you should go to Decky. Even though I like Rory more this week, it is high variance in golf. We're in a non-cut, which I do think helps Rory. And that is one of the reasons I'm more willing to eat that chalk, because it's not like you don't get as paid off in non-cuts, because you can't punish people with chalk if they get cut. They still have 72 holes to turn it around.
Sure do. So last week we saw Hideki, who was in the. Oops, sorry, I pulled up the wrong thing there. My bad.
I get you.
So last week we saw Hideki and Rory McIlroy both finished in the top 5. Tiger Woods also high priced. Do you think we need to play 2 of these guys? And we can include in Paul Casey, who's also above 10K, and Justin Rose, who's also above 10K. I've got them all around 15% other than Rory, 15% owned. So an opportunity maybe to get a little bit of leverage. However, do you think we need to? Do you think we see 2 of these guys again be paramount to your lineup?
It's tough. You know, can it work? Certainly, but it's not just about them. You have to get that right, but then you need to find at least a couple of guys sub 7K to make a run. If no one cooperates down there, it's not really going to matter how well your top 2 do. So keep that in mind. There's some value as we work down. Certainly we'll be touching upon that, but I'm more apt to go to the next range when you've got Fleetwood, Stenson, Finau, Reed, those types. Save a little salary and make that back end of your roster that much stronger.
Yeah, and for transparency purposes, Rory and Xander teamed up, leaves you 6,800, 6,875 per player. Then you obviously throw in Schwab because he's in the field and you can't not play him. Still, though, you're at below 7,000 each player for the remaining 3. So you're still going to have to dive. And like we just mentioned, it's not just about Rory and Xander. Right, great. Let's just say they finish 1-2. You got to find 4 guys below 7K that are all going to come in the top 15 because that's what you need to win the $8 or something like that. And last week, when we look at the salary breakdown of guys that finished on the leaderboard, nobody that cheap was up there. So it just goes to a more balanced build, finding the Keegan Bradleys and Kevin Tways, who both had good DraftKings points week last week, that were relatively cheap, but again, not too cheap in that 7,000 range. So, okay, just wanted to do a little bit of lineup building talk before we moved on to our next segment. And these next ones, I'm going to go a little bit backwards. I'm going to talk about the leverage first, and then we'll go into the chalk. So I need you to pick 2 of these guys. I have them projected all under 10%, so pretty good leverage there. Patrick Reed, Jordan Spieth, Bernd Wiesberger, Shane Lowry, who you and I both loved last week. Think I might be in again. Matt Wallace, Ty Hatton, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Danny Willett, all in this 8K range, all projected under 10%. So if you're playing the $8 and we need to pick 2, who are your 2?
Ooh, a lot of good names in there. And yeah, just by the way, what the answer last week was just correlate to Bridgestone severely. We had mentioned that. We should have just took it all the way because Decky, Tiger, and Shane Lowry just start there and you'll be quite all right. But so for the leverage, I think Patrick Reed is really interesting. Not going to be popular, as you mentioned. Crafty player, playing good. He just kind of feels overpriced, but I'm willing to ignore that. You can get to him. As much as I would like to see Wiesberger, I can't do it. I'm going to say Matt Wallace, who's a guy that you certainly were on earlier than I was. He's now shown everyone he can play in any field. Good form over in Europe lately. Comes over, think he can handle this course absolutely no problem. Him and Ty Hatton in that high 8K range are certainly on my priority list.
Yeah, the Lowry, Wallace, Hatton, those 3 guys, all priced right there under 9K. All going to be under 10%. So interesting. Matt Wallace he's so sporadic. And when something goes wrong for him, he gets really hot under the collar.
Yeah, he does. So
a little nervous about that. If he doesn't hit fairways, he's going to finish in 50th, which is what he finished last year. If he finds fairways, he'll finish in the top 10. That's just he's a good putter. 3 straight top 15s went back to Europe after the PGA Tour season ended, so he's in good form, as you mentioned. One of the guys that I wrote up as part of my free article for Make the Cut, which is a cash game focus, was Rafa Cabrera-Bello, and it looks like he's going to be relatively popular. Got some really good course form on 14, 5, and 19 in the last 3 years. In the last 2 weeks, not bad, but put up 75 DraftKings points or more in both of them. So any interest in RCB this week?
So RCB, to me, it's a product of where he's priced. There's so many guys. It's jam-packed. So that made it a little tough. I totally agree with the line that you're taking. He is the type of guy, if I say, I got I'm going pure upside with, say, 4 guys. I'm going, guys who are going to be more towards the top or maybe DFL. And if I hit it, I want stability. He is someone I feel very confident plays well. He doesn't kill your team. I don't think he's more likely to carry your team, whereas I think Wallace and Hatton, if you told me one of those guys was going to break into the top 5, I'd lean there. But at the same time, RCB is a nice mid-range play if you're just looking for some stability.
We talked about Billy Horschel playing well at the CJ Cup, but not putting well. Bounced back, and it looks like he was 4th on the board in putting last week. Now he gets a huge price bump. Coming off a big finish at 6th place, are you interested to go right back there, or are you going to say that was the peak of the Asian swing?
Yeah, that's probably the prudent move. It's a little much price-wise. If I go balanced on some lineups, maybe I can get him in there, but it seems like, unless you're probably, say you play Rory, he's going to probably be your second man in, is he not? Yep. That's a tough ask. You're sacrificing a lot of big names between him and Rory.
In last week, he was literally the fifth guy in on the team,
That's the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Now we throw him in at second, and I don't want to do that. I'd rather pay $400 more and go get Adam Scott, who I believe to be a better golfer long-term than Billy Horschel. Although Billy Horschel we've seen to come up and play well, just 8.9, second guy in the lineup. I just don't really want to go there. All right, next we'll move on to another question that I had, a big staying on the theme of playing well last week. 2 weeks in a row, really, for Corey Connors. Does the dream end, or does he give one more good finish to get him a definite captain's pick on the President's Cup team?
Guy's impressive. I think the dream ends, though. The dream ends, I'll say this, more in DraftKings than probably in life, because now the ownership and the price are catching up.
Yeah.
That's the problem. He may play okay again, but this is a strong field. He is now priced not in the low 7s, and he's not, I'll take him as my last man in. He is a staple of the lineup. It's just too much for me. You're getting a discount in ownership and price on a guy like Sergio, Ian Poulter. You could pay up for guys like Molinari, RCB, Hatton, Wallace that we talked about. So not really for me this week.
Yeah, I have been riding the train, and I have, but I think I'm getting off here this week. Maybe not for the most part, but maybe not for all of it, I should say. But I just can't make him a core part of my team when I believe, I could be dead wrong, I think I can get as much upside, maybe not stability, but as much upside with 2 Euro Tour players, Eric Van Rooyen and Robert Mcintyre, who are much cheaper. And then the next guy that I wanted to bring up is country mate Adam Hadwin, who hit 64% of his fairways last week and 67% of his greens, which is pretty darn good, but was one of the worst in putting, 1.813, as goes Hadwin's putting, right? It's streaky. We know that. Does that make you interested to play him, though? At 7,500, ball striking seems to be there. Tough week last week, but maybe a candidate for a bounce back.
Hadwin's a guy that you can, when you can putt like that and it comes and goes, which we know, just look at his swing season. He got on fire for a little while and we saw the results follow. If I had to pick one guy, it would be EVR. I just kind of lean just the way he plays. Finally got a win. Hung still afterwards, though. I mean, there's a little drop off, but he's still playing pretty good golf over in Europe. Comes over. I think he's pretty fairly priced. Him and Usti, 2 South Africans in the mid-range, probably going to suck, man.
Yep.
Gotta do it.
I can understand that. I'm interested in Louis this week. I'm not going to lie as well. I definitely am. It looks pretty good last week. So, yeah, speaking on Hadwin's putting, I just wanted to bring up. So he had 16 starts that I have measured, which I think brings us back to the waste management. Yep. So he probably had a couple before that. In those 16 starts, 7 times he had lost strokes gained putting, and 6 times he gained more than 2 strokes putting. So as we just said, it's really boom or bust. So if you're playing Hadwin and you catch a good putting week, that $7,500 salary, you're going to love it probably come Saturday. If he can't putt, you're going to be reeling and saying, what is going on with Hadwin? Just know that it's likely his putting.
But you can live with that. That's what you want, honestly.
Yeah.
What good is it getting a wash putting is not the answer. I would rather have my guy finish dead last putting or first, one or the other, a coin flip. Sign me up every single time for that. Yeah. That's what you're looking for.
So another guy that's actually really good at putting normally, and a guy that has good course history, but burned a lot of people last week. The ownership just blew up on Andrew Putnam. And, I've been on this guy, but not at 20% ownership in an elite field at 7,500. Now, 7,800, like I said, burned a lot of people. Do you think the ownership stays, one? And two, if it doesn't, are you interested to go back in?
So that's interesting because I don't think the ownership stays, to be honest. He's someone that there are a lot of guys on tour like this. They build up to a kind of a peak. It goes usually astray, and then everybody leaves because he's not a staple of main lineups. But to me, it's a range with guys like Poulter, Usti, Sergio. I just feel more comfortable with them. We know that Putnam, better than me, guy can get it done, and he's been playing well. But I just long-term form have more interest in some of the guys, I guess predominantly Euros for whatever reason that is. A lot of Euros on my teams this week.
So speaking of Euros, I know Ches Reavie just won recently, but prior to that, is Hugh Sloughtman and Ches Reavie the same golfer? Are they the same person?
I really hope not, because I'm a huge fan of one of them, and the other one we're
not so much. Yeah,
just stop, Ches. Yeah, they are the same type of, it's form golfers. Keep it in the fairway, pepper the greens. They're not going to overpower courses. Putting is dicey for both, so I totally get it. But man, can I throw one more to you right in this range?
Yeah, let's do it.
Andreea Pavan is a dangerous man. This guy is playing crazy golf. He can get.
Where'd he come from?
I don't know. But his form is just ridiculous. Going back a long stretch. He's just peppering the leaderboards in top 10s right now. Guy can just an amazing iron player. I know he's a little outclassed in terms of a big step up, but man, if you're just talking recent form, this is someone you have to consider.
Hasn't missed a cut since the 148th Open Championship. Went over to the Barracuda somehow, throws in a top 25 the week after the British, so it was on a short week. And since then has done nothing but come in the top 20 every single week except for the BMW PGA. Every single week. In fact, he's been inside the top 16 every single week since then. So it's really impressive. The run started all the way back, I would say, last year at the Nordea Masters and the Czech Masters, where he went 6-1, sixth place and then first place. Since then, it's been a steady climb up the OWGR, all the way from 253rd to 66th, where he is now. It's impressive, and at these prices, how can you not want to play him?
Yeah, it's someone, and again, the ownership will not be there, so you have options.
Not yet, yep.
Not yet, exactly. So I look to them. After that, this is what you're going to have to do if you jam up top. Here we go with some really dicey names as we start to work down.
Yeah, and I'm just going to back up top real quick before we go into our savers. And I just want to talk about the chalk in the 8 and 9K range and just get your thoughts on where we're going to go. Obviously, Finau has some great course history. Everybody is playing Tommy Fleetwood right now every single week. And then all of a sudden, Sling Man Sungjae in his arm, got who knows what's going on over there, just continues to putt like Jordan Spieth, another top 5. What do you do with these guys that are going to be chalky? Are you going to play all of them, or are you leaning one over the other? Oh, and Stenson for that matter. Throw in Stenson there.
Nice, man. It's tough. To me, even though he may end up the most popular of these guys, and they all probably take some ownership, I stick with Fleetwood more often than not. I just love the way he plays. He can attack the par 5s. He's got the iron game to handle it. It's nothing against Sungjae. Finau, I think, is fine too, but more if I had 9,900 left, it would be Finau.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you if you had. It would be Fleetwood, right?
It would. Yeah.
And I had that decision last week in a couple instances where I had 10K or 9.9 and tough decisions. All right, one last thing, the no man's land. Molinari, Cam Smith, Young Hanan, all kind of no man's land, maybe 10% owned. Are you interested in any of the three?
Benyon is playing really well. We don't know exactly what's going on because we can't see the stats, but he rebounded nicely after really, I mean, it was short, but it was such a bad stretch at Shriners. I was so disappointed with how he played. Went to the CJ Cup, represented himself really well, played good at the Zoizo. Cam Smith, I couldn't be further from playing him. I know he pops and does things. He's on the President's Cup team already. Good for him. Just no for me.
Just a no. Okay, fair enough.
Just a flat no.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
On Benny, looks like he had an okay week putting, 1.76 per GIR, hit 70% of those GIR. Driving accuracy was down at 50%. But of the people that actually played last week, driving accuracy, actual percentage of people in the field was not very high. I think it was somewhere in the 55 or 54% range. So not many fairways hit last week altogether. So don't take too much stock into that. I'll say about Ches Reavie, he was worse than putting, I believe, in the field last week. So if you want to play that angle, bounce back.
That's about right.
Guy that tied with him. And this is a good way to open up, I guess, the kind of cheapy salaries. I think that I'm a better putter than Abraham Answer right now.
Probably. I might be.
It's so bad, Ben.
Yeah.
Is it ever going to come around? I mean, this has been on over 2 months now.
Yeah, Answer is, and we've talked about that and I totally get the merit of a lot of people. Chad has mentioned on numerous shows, like, do you like Answer? And it's like, I see it. I see the angle. But honestly, I don't right now. The driving hasn't been as strong, and that's his predominant club. And he is doing himself no favors on the greens at all. So if you want to take a positive, he opened with 74 in Japan, and he rallied with 3 straight rounds in the 60s. But, man, the only thing I really like is that he's very cheap. Other than that, not much to say about him.
How about 75% of his greens? Does that help?
Only if you can make some of them. You got to – and a non-cut, you have to putt.
Right? He averaged almost 2 putts per GIR last week. That's insanity. That means that he made no birdies. That's basically what it means.
Rio formula. Did you see the shot by Bubba last week?
Oh, dude, that's
what?
Okay, so they showed they showed him hitting, and they showed like a little shot tracer, and then the thing that I was looking at, it just had like a thing next to it of the actual shot tracing line. I saw the shot tracing line, and it looked like nothing like where his ball was going. So I did see it. I would have liked to see him play the entire hole that way. But yeah, that's Bubba for you, right?
That's Bubba for you. I just can't even get there. I looked at him closely, and I don't know. For me, I'd just rather play people like JT Poston, Schwab, Harding, honestly, even. I'm going more technical type guys down here.
Poston and Schwab, let's talk about them for a second, because I'm actually really interested in them at these prices. JT Poston's a guy who saw win the Wyndham Championship, bounced back nicely last week. I think he shot 5 or 6 under, so a decent week. But at 6,700, these two kids, Poston and Schwab, they've been very impressive this year. And I'm okay going back. I know this is a super step up in terms of class. For Schwab, Poston's been here for a couple of weeks at least. I'm playing both of them and playing them a lot. What say you?
Oh, yeah. And I firmly understand the risk with a guy like Schwab. Alexander Bjork was a guy that I really liked from Europe, and he got his chance in spots like this, and he really didn't do much. Schwab is somewhat of a similar player, honestly, except he can't really putt. He's going to gain off the tee, mostly with accuracy. But, man, I've seen a lot of this guy. And, yes, it's certainly less competition, but he's been absolutely phenomenal on the European Tour. He's close to winning. Pretty erratic. He throws in some miscuts here and there, but, I mean, the results don't lie. He's peppering the board, and that's what I want. I would rather have a guy like that where if I do get his A game, I still feel confident he can make an impact at a spot like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously it's really young in his career, but when I watch him play, it reminds me of watching Henrik Stenson play. Just super accurate with almost everything, good at all parts of his game. And also the personality seems to kind of match Stenson a little bit. More stoic, more reserved, but seems like, again, in the interviews I've seen, could crack a couple of jokes. It has that dry sense of humor. Anyways, just profiling a little bit. I'm not saying to play both of them. I probably will.
Yeah, me too, sadly. He's a young guy, too. He's only 24. He went to Vanderbilt. And we'll see. There's a lot of guys that make a splash on the European Tour, and then they fall into irrelevance. Some of them become mainstays, and they end up playing on the PGA Tour in a couple years. I have no idea, but he's going to get his chance here. Austin, probably the more prudent play, but I have interest in both.
7,300, a guy that is getting his chance this week. I believe it's his first WGC. Burst onto the scene, a 21-year-old from Scotland. I think he's going to be a mainstay. He's got grit. He's got game. He's got the absolute go for it mentality. He's going to hit driver off the deck from 280 over water. And I love that style of play in a no cut. Talking about Bobby Mcintyre. Price is a little expensive. What do you make of him getting paired up to someone like right up next to Louis Oosthuizen?
Yeah, so he's an interesting guy because, and we'll have to keep, tomorrow night is lock. I'm going to really dig into his ownership. If he is I think he is a small chance to be really popular relative to what we would think, because people like him. They've seen the name a little, and he's playing very well. If he's not popular, I certainly would look to him, like you said, in a non-cut. This guy, I mean, the birdies, you can just click on his little thing. He scores. There's no doubt about that. A step up like a lot of these guys, but I think he's ready for it. I would pivot to some of the other names we mentioned if you're getting a significant ownership discount for sure.
Yeah, and another lefty sits right at the same price as him. You and I talked about playing him, what was it, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
And he actually had a pretty good DraftKings points, and then he fell off on the weekend. Phil Mickelson, 7,300, same price as 7,400. Any interest in him or the native Hao Tong Lee, who was one of those guys that you kind of mentioned, looked like he was going to be a mainstay, looked like he was going to be a perennial winner. He beat out McIlroy at the beginning of this season, so almost a year ago, and has had a lost year since. Is it time for him to break out, or are we waiting?
I'm waiting. He's someone, there's a big deal for him, of course. It's a home game. Not had a lot of success in this event. We know he's talented, but at the same time, it's been somewhat few and far between lately with him. So, obviously Thorborn is not available right now.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, why not? Wait, where's our guy Thorbjorn Olesen? He normally placed right here.
Yeah, he's in filming the longest yard golf edition probably, but Hao Tong has to kind of carry the mantle for those pedigree scores, can be aggressive, but I'm not going to force it with him. I really the form is not there in my eyes.
Yeah, it definitely isn't. Okay, so I think we've covered pretty much.
I got one egregious name for it.
Below 7K or above?
Oh, no. He's
lower. Okay, yeah. Give it to me. I'll listen to it.
If I had to, and I want to be clear, I don't think you need to go down here, but say, you know what? I want Rory and two guys in the nines or something really aggressive. Xander Lombard is a guy who is a wild man. When he gets in form, he can score with anybody. We've seen him stick around at some events. Usually doesn't hold it together, but if you look at the run of form he's actually been on, the game is in good shape. He was 7th last week, or not last week, in his last event in Spain. Going back a little earlier, some good events during the European season. And again, he's a guy who scores really well. He's from South Africa. Wildly dangerous. That's a given when you're 6,200. But if I had to play someone down there, it would be him.
I don't mind Lombard.
Xander Lombard, real sicko.
What a 24-year-old, 25-year-old from South Africa. The reason he's here, if you weren't able to catch my pods that I do now, he is here because he led the Sunshine Tour last year in order of merit. So him and a guy by the name of Matthew Millar are here from those two. Anyways, just thought I'd throw those tidbits out. All right, I got a sicko for you since we're doing sickos, and then we'll go back up a little bit. The sicko I'm going to give you is a guy that just came in the top 10 last week on the European Tour, the Portuguese Masters, and is here because of one of those obscure ways to get into this tournament, which is the Australia-Asia PGA Order of Merit. And it's Jake McLeod at 6,100, 600 to 1. Crazy. That's just sick. That's why this is why we call it the real sicko range. He gains 0.4 of a stroke off the tee. So his best stat is off the tee, which is good. Coming in off good form. Just the sicko one that I'm probably going to have in a couple of lineups.
I mean, I don't know much about him. Just looking, clearly he found something. But he had been on a pretty bad run of form earlier in the year.
So bad at putting.
Went low in Portugal. And again, if you're going to play someone down here, you're just really looking for scoring, and you need a unique roster build. I think the smart thing to do is find some money and get guys like Harding, Schwab, Poston, Answer, Watts. Like, those guys are in a different class of talent, and they're not that much more expensive.
So Mcintyre Schwab has done everything other than win this year, right?
Oh yeah, he's been. My bank account can attest to him not win. I bet him outright so many times, and I thought I had it. And he did catch some really nice top 5s and top 10s for me along the way.
Yeah.
But he has been so close multiple times, and I like that. I've said a million times, I love the mentality of guys who have been on Sunday pairings over someone who has just been grinding it out to try to make cuts on the strongest tour.
I got two guys that have done what we're talking about, have won. Both of them kind of out of nowhere. Similar to Schwab. Schwab has been out of nowhere with his consistency in top 10 and continue to place. These two guys are way more erratic. Christian Benzenhuten, he's won twice this year, if I'm not mistaken, on the Euro Tour. And Kurt Kitayama also won twice this year. 6,900 and 6,800, Kitayama first. Any interest in either of those two guys?
So Kurt Kitayama finally came over and abruptly played bad. Then he went back and just abruptly played fantastic.
Yeah, what the heck? I don't get it.
I tried to play him at Shriners. It didn't work. I don't mind him at all. He's a guy that everything I said leading up to how I felt about him at Shriners is what I'm saying now. He has competed in Europe. He's got some pedigree. Yeah, the results weren't good, but he is on a nice stretch. It looks like Shriners was more an outlier. So I know it's a tough field for him, but again, in this range, there's not a ton of opportunity cost. You don't want to play all these guys, but you at least want to consider having a couple.
Benzenhuten, I'll just give you the quick stats on him. Let's just see. Strokes gained off the tee, ranked 142nd. Approach to the green, ranked 96th. Around the green, ranked 3rd. And putting, ranked 25th. So he's kind of like a Jordan Spieth type of player, which if he can get hot with a driver or his irons, obviously has a chance to win because his short game is great. And we say that about Spieth a lot. He won't be able to do that against this field. I would rather go with a guy like Kitayama, who seems to be in better form. I'd rather go down to Schwab in this instance. And I would even rather go to, and here's my pitch of the week. I've already mentioned the guy's name only because he returned value in the last WGC after playing so far in last place on Sunday. Kevin Tway throws up a hole-in-one, gets to 60 points, and ends up getting the 10X. He put up 75.5 DraftKings points last week. Good for 17th in DraftKings points rank and came in 38th in the field. So an interesting stat there. 6,400. I'm going to get sucked in. I'm not going to lie to you.
He's someone, again, we know he can really score. His driving has regressed a bit, and he needs to fix that. That has been the strength of his game. We've seen it with the form. It hasn't been a great run, but, you highlighted the real positive, which is when you get 72 holes, even if he doesn't have his best stuff, he can help mitigate that just by, he gets a streak or two. He scores more than your average person. So, if you're in a jam, my real plan is to not have many guys below Poston and Schwab. So I may get to a sliver of a couple of these guys, but overall, not going to be. This is a total side note. Is that the guy with you might not know what I'm talking about. Is that the guy with the rat poison?
Who, Kevin?
No, Bezo Hugen. Who? You know?
Oh, Christian Benzenhuten? No, what's this story? No, I'm interested.
It might not be him. There was someone on the tour, the European tour, who, as a kid, he it's like an outrageous story. Yeah, like ingested rat poison, and he had all these problems, and then now he's back. I'm gonna feel like a real turkey if this is not him. Yeah, maybe not.
Golf champ Benzenhuten drank rat poison, age 2.
Thank you. There it is.
Wow, we need to give Ben a clap for that. It's very good.
I read that story not that long ago.
Okay. I love it.
That's good for that guy. Rooting for him. Obviously, that's a ridiculous thing.
Yep.
And yeah, so that's all I got on him. Probably not going to play him though.
Yeah, on Kevin Tway, just a finishing note. I threw Troy Merritt in this box the last couple of weeks. It's just a birdie or better percentage. Tway put up 17 birdies last week. That's what get him the 75.5 points. He also had 15 bogeys, and 2 doubles. So that's why he finished in whatever he did, 34th or 38th. I was the conductor and the engineer of Marty Doe last year. I'm not going to lie. I'll take my lickings. I don't know if he made more than 2 cuts on the PGA Tour. This was 2 years ago I was the champion. Last year he had to go back to the Corn Ferry. Won at the beginning of the year. Looked like he was a lock. And then looked like he didn't make a cut. He's 22 years old. He's from China. Him and who was the other name? One second, I'll get it. He was on the Carl Yuan, I believe the guy's name is, right? Carl Yuan. Both of those guys were on the web.com tour this year, or Corn Ferry Tour. Both under 22 years of age, both Chinese. They're in the field this week. Do you have interest in either of those guys?
I certainly do not. Just more of if I was playing 150, maybe I'd get a closer look, but I am not. And more often than not, I think you can just I have a couple names. For me, it's Schwab. For me, it's Lombard. That's enough. You know what I mean? I think everyone wants to get somebody, and I totally get that. I'm more comfortable with those guys over Marty. I know Marty Do. He's glasses man in his
Marty Do. Yeah, it's his glasses. Yep.
That's what I know about him. But all right, we got to give a hot take.
Well, one more question.
Sure.
Because we've got one Spaniard that kind of came out of nowhere who's playing great right now. Then we had another Spaniard that came out of nowhere this year and is playing terrible right now, and that's Jorge Campillo. So Jorge Campillo had a great stretch. He came first and third at the beginning of this year. Hasn't done anything since. You're staying away from him, right?
I mean, I looked when the pricing came out. I was like, oh wow, that's pretty. And then I dug, and I just can't come. You're talking multiple miscuts in a row, no sign of anything. I'm not gonna go to a WGC and think this is where he turns it around.
Yep, I think it's a good point. Okay, yeah, I think it's perfect time for hot takes, and I have Slack up here, so I'm able to message it to you, and we kept track of last week, and yours was looking really, really good until Sunday. He finally learned how to putt. Talking about Justin Thomas, you had him outside of the top 15. Where did he finish? 15th, I think, right on the money. Yeah,
like right there, which I'm okay with. The merit of that.
Yep.
Yeah, not that far off. And I need all the help I can get with the hot takes. So
mine was terrible. However, I will say that at least one of these 4 guys was on my winning team on FanDuel. I had a first-time winner. Yeah, I had a first-time winner ex the Puerto Rico Open, which gave me Finau, Hovland, Fleetwood, and Fitz were the 4 names I gave you, and they were all pretty garbage. So awful hot take by me.
Tiger, not a first-time winner.
Yeah, Tiger, furthest thing from a first-time winner, number 82 for Tiger Woods. Incredible. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Tiger. I didn't even bring him up until just now. We did pretty good, 56 minutes without mentioning. So, yeah, really great to see. But let's go with the hot take. Is it going to be about Schwab or no?
So I thought about that, but I'm going to leave that alone because realistically, I don't want to just say something to say it. I think Schwab is an interesting play, but I would be very surprised if he knocks on the door. I think he can be a staple of your lineups. That's more because of the price. But the guy, I'm going to – you know what my hot take is going to be? I'm going to go for one. I'm going to say that Patrick Reed comes in the top 5. How's that?
I love it. I think that's
against the grain. I was going to say win, but that's too much. I think he can play very well here. And the game is quietly in a very nice place for Reed.
It is. He's actually had a pretty good couple of months here.
Yes.
Not going to lie. So I like that one a lot. Okay, let's see if I can find one that's semi-good.
Going to Bobby Mcintyre. I thought that's where you might go.
I was thinking about it. I looked at him, and then I'm like, man, if he doesn't put the ball in the fairway, he's going to be the last because
It's possible.
Okay. I'll take the two guys at 6,700 that I mentioned are going to be a big part. I'll take both of them. I'll take Schwab, and I'm going to take Poston. And is top 15 like not too hot take enough?
No, that's good. I agree. Top 5. We don't need to. It's swing season. We're both relaxing.
Yeah.
Come Byron Nelson. I'm going to be picking exactas. I'm going to be doing all sorts of shady shenanigans for my hot takes. But
I think for this, I would bet the top 10 and the top 20 in the top 5 for Poston and Schwab here. You can get some pretty decent numbers on those, and I think they're both playing good enough, even in a field like this, to at least find themselves in the top 15, which would be great for 6,700.
I agree. I like it. Chat, as we always say, I appreciate you guys hanging out with us, giving us a listen, giving us a watch. If you can hit the like button, it's a huge, huge help to the company and to the show. Keeps it in front of the paywall for you guys. And we really do love doing it. So we appreciate that. And of course, we encourage you to sign up. It's a ton of fun. Great resources, all the things behind the paywall. Jason has a ton of articles that are in front of the paywall, but a lot behind as well. I'm doing articles. We have projections, ownership, all that good stuff. And that's just for golf. We have all the other sports as well. So give it a try. Like I said, if you don't want to jump in, just sign up for a week. Honestly, what's the worst that can happen? You can yell at me if you don't like it.
Yeah, and the great part is after this week, we'll be totally transparent. After this week, we have a week off, which is, I honestly think it'll be the first time we haven't done a golf article or show in I can't even tell you how long. Then we're back for 2 weeks. We got the Mayakoba, which I love the golf course. I love the resort. It's a nice change of pace. So if you haven't joined yet, try it out for that week, because it's a week where you're going to have to really grind through, where the analysis from Ben and I are really coming to shape. Then after that, you got the Sea Island, Georgia event. So 2 good weeks where analysis and research is really going to pay off. And then we get a month break, and then we're back until September again. So still a good time to join, especially with those 2 fall swing events coming up. You're going to need all the data you can have to try and field some teams. Speaking of fall season events, they've got an event out in Bermuda. The field is so bad that DraftKings didn't even give us any contests for it. They normally do at least give us like 1,000. They didn't put any up today, did they?
I didn't even look. I maybe a small one. It is. I just looked at the outrights. One of the worst fields in the history of golf. Gary Nicklaus is in it. That's okay.
Gary's in it.
Yeah, don't do that. But we get a nice week off, and then, as you just mentioned, a couple of good swing season events, and then in a couple more weeks after, during the holidays, you're off. It's full go. The season kicks up and it doesn't stop.
I'm taking everything I just said about the Bermuda Championship. I'm taking it all back. And I'm playing.
Okay.
They put out a 3K to first contest, and Denny McCarthy is leading the board at 10.8K. Scotty Scheffler at 10.2. Alex Noren, our guy, at 10.1. Oh, I'm definitely playing. There's no doubt I'm gonna have to make some lineups now.
Well, on that note, that's a perfect way to close this bad boy out. I do want to say thanks once again to Fantasy Draft, our sponsor. Much appreciated. And get over there and do some things. Brow is now a game time decision. Another perfect way to end this show. So get on out of here. Go work on NBA, everybody. Good luck. We will keep everyone posted about, in 2 weeks, we'll be back in business. We will certainly tweet out we'll probably moving the late show back to a Wednesday as it normally is. But we'll keep everyone informed. If you have any questions, just find us on Twitter or in Slack. Good luck, and we will see you guys soon.